Welcome to Chat 2023 Spring Programs, Clouds, Power and Ornaments, Roving Central Asia. Well, this exhibition takes textile culture as an entry point to deeper explore the Central Asia's social-political culture situations and introduce the culture to Hong Kong local audiences. My name is Wang Weiwei. I'm in-house curator of Chat. Based on my research, I found out that Central Asia has a lot of traditional textile materials, technique, and styles, which make Central Asia textile culture very historical and very distinctive. As a textile-based museum, it's very necessary for Chat to explore the textile culture from Central Asia. I invited 3 guest curators to curate this exhibition together to bring different opinions, angles into this exhibition. The first part is curated by Slavs and Tatars and Yumi, and the second part is curated by Alexander Tsai.
Our section is entitled Clouds and Power, and it looks at the role of textiles, and namely ikat, a Central Asian form of textile weaving, as a means of thinking about the relationship between the real and the fictional, the blurred and the in focus, within both traditions and artisanship, craftsmanship, as well as digital technologies today.
It's actually inspired by a book by Elias Canetti, written in 1960, which depicts or describes the relations between the individual and the crowd. And it was one of our inspirations to change the title for Clouds. It's inspired by one of the textile techniques of Central Asia, the ikat. The Persian name Abrbandi ikat means actually clouds. So we take it as a starting point to look into different of clouds that habits our daily life.
The installation in the arcade starts with works by Nazi Beglari, an artist and designer who basically sources ikats from different parts of the world. The ikat originated in Indonesia but has traveled westwards through India all the way to Central Asia. She composes garments or sort of kimono type robes out of these ikats, and they are an example of artisanship and artwork that one can wear, in fact.
When we did the research for the show, we also spent some time at the National Archive of Video in Almaty. So this is a Kazakh national archive, and we looked through Soviet-era film materials spanning over really 5-6 decades, and we found very interesting materials as to how they documented traditional craft making processes of different nomadic tribes, but also there was a very conscious sort of construction and almost like textbook writing of this tradition. So in one of the videos, you see a traditional dressed lady who goes to an art museum where she observes these patterns from traditional craftsmanship, and then she uses these patterns in her own design. And in another video, you actually see a part of the history which we find very important to tell as part of the show, which is the Soviet-era nuclear weapon test set located in northeast Kazakhstan, where you can see this explosion of this nuclear weapon with this mushroom cloud, which in some ways also correspond to the name of the show. And that part of the history is very much forgotten, or people don't want to talk about it, and Russia still doesn't want to recognize that part of the history.
So Dilyara Kaipova, she has 2 works commissions within the exhibition. Her project is, so the Cotton Curse, is questioning the overproduction and over-valorizations by the Soviet regime of the cotton as the white gold. It's a project that she's been doing for a long time, also working with many different producers. Another work that you will see is actually a carpet made by Afghan craftsmen in Samarkand, which depict like a ceiling with some cotton flowers, but also the red stars that are of course typical from the Soviet time, that you can after activate it with 2 iPads looking at the carpets, and you will see the movies produced by Timur Karpov and Mikhail Borodin, Cotton 100%, which actually depict the conditions of cotton picker in Uzbekistan nowadays.
Another artist in the exhibition is called Ashat Akhmedyarov, and he's a Kazakh artist who is very interesting because he's mixing performance and activism as well as textiles, namely ecological activism, which is very urgent today, not only in the world, but in Central Asia in particular, with access to water and the drying up of the Aral Sea, for example, and the Lake Balkhash. he uses textiles and namely an outfit as a kind of shamanistic outfit to reference the shamanistic origins of sort of belief systems in Kazakhstan, but in a very contemporary sort of early 21st century context.
So Kubra Academy, she's an artist, Afghan artist based in Paris. The two works that are presented here are from the series Giving Birth. You will see two women giving birth to animals, one camel and one chicken. Through these two works, Kubra Academy wants to highlight the condition of women in Afghanistan, which are most of the time considered as birth machines. They are giving birth in the fields in different conditions, standing up, lying down, and here she really wants to highlight this feminist approach. So the video Tabkier from Aziza Zahra is an artist working with photography and video and sounds. This video shots the city of Kabul from a distant point of view, and suddenly you will see the lights flickering, shimmering. So you will not get the city as it holds, but more like a perspective. And the sound is very present within this video. The call for the prayer, Allah Akbar, is present into the sounds. It's a call for the peace, the call for the prayer, but it has also another meaning within the recent Afghan history.
Another two artists in the exhibition are actually a husband and wife artists, but they work separately. One of them is Ali Bapanov and his wife's name is Sauleh Bapanova. They both work in tapestries, gobelins, and Sauleh, she actually incorporates three-dimensional objects such as rocks and stones from nature into the very kind of otherwise two-dimensional surface of the textile. Ali Bey's work references a lot of cosmological sort of figures, mythological figures such as the wolf, and the wolf is a kind of origin figure of the Kazakh people or tribes.
And so book and reading has been always a big part of the collective practice. So that's why we conceive a reading corner that allows the audience to rest and to also get acquainted with some of the references that we selected for this show. So the work Mosaic with a Star by the artist Aziza Shadenova is inspired by the Islamic architecture. Here she's representing the coals that she collected with a painting on canvas, and referring to the architecture, she's also referring to the condition of women in Central Asia, who in the 20s have been employed in factories. So our work is a call for the equality of women and men within Central Asia.
The theatre group 705 is an independent theatre group based in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, and we commissioned them to make a performance for this exhibition, and they took the whole city as their arena, their stage, and they traced the riverbed of a disappearing river, and in the process you see them walking through this area that is going through various forms of urbanization, privatization, and with that they want to critique a lot of the behind-the-scene deals that are being made, which then sells public land to private developers in Bishkek. The exhibition takes its cue from this geographical area, Central Asia, that we're looking at, and examines this area through art, through contemporary art, with a particular focus on crafts, textile culture, but also ornaments that you might find not just in textiles, but also in other crafts. This is the very kind of materialist angle that we took, but with that we also wanted to look at what are the society like that are undergoing tremendous transformations in the last decades, if not 1 or 2 centuries. What's the relation between tradition and modernity and future, and also the current political and social conditions there. The artist stall consisting of the artist Gunara and Murat Bek. They work together in various projects, and in this installation that you see, there's a weaving machine which Gunara used in her performance back in 2001, and the performance was made at the Bishkek Art Museum, where you see her weaving these threads into the braids, and this is a traditional ritual that women had performed. You actually have to have 40 braids, and the number 40 is considered a sacred number. In the performance, you see having someone doing the weaving of the threads into her hair. But at the end of the performance, There's this radical gesture that she cut off all the braids, a suggestion of a break from the tradition. So the context of this work is that Kyrgyzstan, where both artists come from, is a nation that has gone through quite some political turmoil. In the post-Soviet time, there's this drive to establish a national identity, so therefore certain traditions are established, or rather re-established, as national traditions. So the work of Foucault is very much based on his research. For our show, he has done this extensive research on the city, but also the river named Chichik, which is upstream from the city of Tashkent. And in the installation, you see historical photographs, you see documentations from the building of different infrastructure projects in the city. The city was made as part of this Soviet terraforming project, which was very much a production site for fertilizers for the cotton industry. Medina and Kokonja are two artists from Kazakhstan. Both are very young, and in this collaboration they created the sort of reinterpreted yurt structure, which just covers this traditional space where the nomads live in the steppes, and they cover it with felt, which is also according to the nomadic tradition. But when you enter, as an audience, when you enter this space, there was a tracking mechanism, and your face and your gesture will be tracked and analyzed. With that, they want to problematize technologies, but they also want to help us engage with technologies differently.
It's kind of a turning point and connection between suture, reimagining ornament, and it's a part of cloud, power, and ornament, Roving Central Asia. It touched upon topics and themes of both exhibition, and it was also a curatorial collaboration. I focus on the Kazakh traditional felt carpets and on the ornament of felt carpets. And the production of textiles inside family, it was always associated with women. It were women who were always doing the carpets or who were producing some textile pieces. That's why I thought if I want to explore the contemporary meaning of the ornament, I also want to focus on the practice of female artists, of women artists. The idea to look at the ornament was to look at it formally as a visual language, to look at the formal characteristic of ornament, but then also to look at it socio-culturally and to see how social context influenced and changed the way of production of ornament, and how the artistic practice actually correlate or interact with a wider social context. And also ornament or a medium of a felt can be a critical tool to look at aesthetic hierarchies or to look at the definitions of art itself. Aysel Kadirkhanova, it's a new work. It was commissioned for this exhibition. It's the title is Mariam, the name of her grandmother. And through that work, Aysel addressed the issue of alphabet change in Kazakhstan in 1929 and 1940. So traditionally, Kazakh were using Arabic script, but then in 1929, a version of Latin alphabet was adapted. But then in 1940, Cyrillic alphabet replaced that, and till today, we use a Cyrillic alphabet in Kazakhstan. So Aysel, working with the story of her grandmother, who lived through that time and who witnessed and experienced the change of alphabets throughout her life. And through the practice of embroidery on the canvas, I was trying to find or to reveal a memory that her body still keeps. She stitched the words or letters in all three alphabets, and sometimes she used the color thread of the same color as a canvas. So somehow that emphasized the invisibility of women's labor, but also invisibility of the trauma that body still can keep. And I want to mention the work of Gulnur Makazhanova in Gallery 2 as well. Gulnur works with felt, and felt is a main medium and main material for her. It's an existing work. She made it in 2018, but then for this exhibition, she made some additions inspired by her residence in Hong Kong. That presence of the material, of the medium, of felt becomes very strong. And the disappearance of absence of ornament somehow highlights that disappearance of tradition or inaccessibility for us actually to connect with meaning of ornaments that were assigned to them before, like in traditional culture. Gulnar work, it's a large-scale installation that the first part of it she made during the residency at CHAD, and the second part she made in her studio in Berlin. So it's a large-scale textile installation which tackle upon the topic of ornament, but also topic of tradition and disappearance of tradition, and working with traditional medium and making those medium relevant for today. Especially the works of Yelena Vorobyova and Lida Blinova, that the space somehow helps work be more read. They're in certain conversation with each other, but they're very intimate. They do require, that intimate space, like closed space, so you enter and you're in a smaller space maybe, and then you go outside. I wanted to create that kind of intimacy for them. And then the salmon wall, it gives a very nice sense of Uzbekistani environment and Uzbekistani rural culture. Also important to bring the material, which actually are very common to people's life. In that second section, the Umida Akhmedova project and the project of CA Research Group, both of them, they are existing on a certain edge between what we call traditionally art practice or art objects and kind of wider understanding. Artist as an ethnographer, what Umida is doing, right? She is exploring and she's making a documentary project through her lens and through her reconceptualization. They are kind of becoming artistic projects. We also show her pieces from her personal collection. She was collected. Pieces themselves were embroidered by different women and who were not artists. For me, it was also very important to show the collection of Umida and to actually bring those homemade, very private pieces of people's life into like a large art institution. Because I think through that we also expand what we consider art, right? And what actually is art now. And CA Research Group is kind of the still ongoing exploration, research. It's at the end because it kind of invites people to communicate or to interact with objects, to read the publication, to make money or to cut their own ornaments. But also for artists themselves, I think some of the projects, they're still kind of ongoing. They are part of the process. I do hope that the space itself, it will be kind of more open and it would invite audience to interact with objects.
Central Asia itself was considered as a crossroad for a long time for different people, goods, culture and religions to meet together and exchange. And a lot of political powers competed in this region, which bring a different period of time in social transitions. So exploring Central Asia can help us to explore the alternative way to learn from each other, to coexist in our ever-changing world and have alternative way of thinking about the complexity and diversity. This is the first large square exhibition featured Central Asian art in Hong Kong. I really appreciate the guest curators' insightful curation. Together with those talented artists, we are able to put the exhibition together. And I do hope that the exhibition can bring the interest and curiosity from the local audiences about the Central Asia, which is really far from Hong Kong.